I'm Dylan Figueroa. I'm a landscaper in Sacramento, California. I like to build cool things for cool people. I'm landscaping with Dylan on Instagram, and I'm a hardscaper.
What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 236 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have another I Am a Hardscaper episode. This is where we bring on a hardscape business owner and do a deep dive into themselves and their business. And today, we've got Dylan from Landscaping with Dylan. That's landscaping with Dylan on Instagram. And this is an interesting one and a little bit more unique than what our guests usually get into on these I Am a Hardscaper episodes. On this one, we dive deep into Instagram and growing social media, as Dylan has done just that with his Landscaping with Dylan account, and he's got some incredible advice on what he's learned through his time there on Instagram. And if you want to see the cool and creative reels that he's put together, just go to his Instagram page and see what he's cooked up there. But before we get into talking with Dylan, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cycle CPA. If you need bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services there. And we want to say that in 3 weeks, or at the end of 2023, you will no longer be able to get locked in pricing with the How to Hardscape headquarters software. So if you're looking to budget, estimate, job costs, time track, scheduling, CRM, and a lot more features that we've got in the work with this software, and you want a demo, just go to members.howtohardscape.com or just shoot me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. Basically, everyone that's signed up until this point here with the software, they have locked in pricing for however long they remain signed up with us. That means over the years, we're not going to increase their pricing, as well as we add more features to the software, we're not going to increase their pricing. But as we have added and as we continue to add more and more features to the software, that pricing will increase for new users. Now, you can avoid all that if you sign up before the end of 2023 here. In addition to that, members of the How to Hardscape headquarters software also have access to our complete course content library that has courses on installing interlocking concrete pavement, installing segmental retaining walls, gas fire features, lighting. And we've also got 3 courses on budgeting, estimating, and knowing your numbers. That knowing your numbers course features Cycle CPA, and they go in on a profit and loss statement as well as a balance sheet, so you know what those are. But what this course content library is going to evolve into is more of a resource for you as a business owner, but as well as your employees, to train them, to onboard them, to use these courses to help them through your business. We've got a lot of exciting announcements coming soon for both the software as well as the course content library there. So in 2024, we're going to be separating the two so that they each have their own pricing associated with them. That way, if you want to just be part of the course content library area, you can have access to that. Or if you want to have access to the software, you can have access to that only. But if you want both, that price will increase for the two of them together here. So 2023 is your last shot with that. Once again, members.howtohardscape.com. You can book a demo there with me, or you can simply shoot me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, let's get into today's episode with Dylan. All right, Dylan, let's get to know a little bit more about you, yourself, how you got started in the industry. Can you give our audience a little bit of background as to those beginning stages of learning about the industry, starting your own business, things like that, wherever you want to start here?
I'm out in California, and I am a third-generation landscaper. My grandfather started landscaping back in the 70s, and he had 5 boys, and all 5 of them at one point or another worked in the business. My uncle Kevin he's still in the business. He runs the landscaping side of things. And my dad has a maintenance company, and he strictly does maintenance. And then growing up my whole life, I knew one thing. I did not want to be a landscaper. I did not think it was attractive. I was always around it. I learned very quickly growing up, if you don't act busy, you're going to get put to work. And I just grew up not wanting to be a landscaper at all. But then once I turned 18 and I needed to make some money, I got a job going door to door selling the newspaper, and I freaking hated it. So I quit like 2 days later. I'm like, all right, Dad, I'll come work for you. So I started on a maintenance route, and then I would work there for a few months, go get a new job, that job would, fall out, and I'd come back, work there for a few months to a year, then leave, and then come back. And I was naturally good at it just because I've always been around it. And I've got this complex where I didn't want to be the boss's son. So I always worked harder than everybody, but I still had no interest in it. My thoughts of like want to become a landscaper long term, that was not a plan whatsoever. And then about 6 years ago, that was about 5 years ago now, I came back again, and instead of working on the maintenance side like I normally did, I hopped over to the landscape construction side. And I found that to be a little bit more fun, just because I got to be a little bit more creative. And I started to get this motivation, like where, all right, well, I want to expand. I kind of want to grow. I was just being a foreman. I want to, in order for me to make more money, I got to start selling some jobs. Right. So then I like, well, how do I do that? And then they said, you can go sell stuff, but you have to go find your own business. So I started up an Instagram account just because I heard, Instagram is something that, can be used for marketing. And then I started to follow different landscapers. And then once I kind of discovered the, hardscape brotherhood and just the different type of landscapers that were out there. And that's when I started to really get inspired. And it was actually Almond Landscape. I can like 100% credit him for being like the number one inspiration for me when I first started. I really respected his like how technical he is, and I had never really considered pavers before. But after watching him, and I kind of asked him a few questions, and I decided to kind of like give it a shot. And then that's when I really started to fall in love with it, and that's when the shift really started happening. And then I was like, all right, well, now it's time to actually start getting some business. So then I started posting on Instagram, and it did not work out well. I spent like, maybe $1,000 on ads over the course of a few months, and doing what I thought was, what you're supposed to do. Like if you're thinking like marketing, like this is what you should do to get business, and nothing was working at all. And then I watched a 5-minute video from Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure you're probably familiar with him. He's a big, social media guru. But this one 5-minute video, this kind of light bulb, sparked in me. And then that's when I started really creating different types of content that actually started resonating with people. And then from there, kind of the rest is history. Like it's probably like 6 months later, I left the family business and just went off on my own. And then I've been on my own for the past like 3 years now.
Nice.
And yeah, I just want to build cool stuff for cool people. That's kind of my thing.
Nice. What was that jumping off point where you're like, okay, I can do this and I'm going to leave the family business? Was that a struggle with you, or was that it just made sense?
Well, it was kind of I've got a young family, and when I was in a foreman position, and I wanted to like earn more, but being a foreman, at least the way the family's company was structured, there was a definite limit to your growth. And then we already had a pretty solid property manager or project manager working for us. So that next position moving up really wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And then we were actually super competitive. He's my best friend. And once I started getting traction on Instagram, there was a little bit of tension because I was bringing in, I started bringing in a bunch of business. And then I kind of got hit with like an ultimatum, like where you built up this Instagram, but now it's getting to the point to where it's starting to become something, and you're not going to be running anymore. It's going to be a group thing. And we kind of had a little bit of a falling out. Mm-hmm. So when they said that, I left the next day. I just kind of YOLO'd it. And I kind of went pretty public with it. And, I made this big announcement like, hey, I'm leaving. I'm starting my own thing. I'm deleting all my content and starting over in 24 hours. And we'll just go from there. And then that day, I had like 30 people message me saying like, hey, once you're up and running, you're taking jobs, you got a job with me. Just let me know once you're ready. So that like there was like a huge swing of emotions over that 24 hours. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of just, leaving emotionally. I didn't really have a plan
Yeah.
other than I knew that I had 1 2 week job that I could, milk out for a month or so doing it by myself. But, so I went from that like instantly scared to like, wow, I've got all these opportunities. That emotional roller coaster over 24 hours is pretty crazy. But
Definitely.
yeah, so it was kind of like just the way it worked out.
Yeah. And it's worked out for the best. Where are you right now in terms of crews, employees, size of business there?
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna close out the year right around like 900,000 in revenue, and then I've got 3 employees at the moment.
Gotcha.
Um, I keep going back and forth on where exactly I want to take it. There's the way I've been doing it isn't exactly scalable because I am like the person that's doing it all, and just on a lot of my projects, it's very fluid where I'm there and like things are changing, and I'm very in tune with the customer, and that's not super scalable. So I keep going back and forth. Like, do I want to stay small and, stay super boutique and have that real personal connection? Or do I want to kind of go a little bit more basic and scale with more crews? So that's kind of
Right.
like the mental dilemma I'm in at the moment.
Anywhere you're leaning towards, or just kind of going back
I'm
and
thinking I'm
forth?
leaning more towards the staying small, more boutique, and leaning more on subs.
Okay.
Um, One thing that I do like that I have done over the past few years is I haven't taken any loans on anything. So I'm 100% debt free for the business. And I see like the rumblings of like the markets changing and all this, but my overhead, other than just, payroll and like taxes and like stuff like that, it's relatively low. So I like not having that stress.
Yes.
Whereas I've got some friends that, they've got 50 employees and they're like, oh yeah, I just had to let go 10 guys last month. I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
that's stressful. Or, they have
Yeah.
$100,000 payroll. It's like, doesn't sound fun. you know?
So you did mention at the very beginning that you didn't want to become a landscaper. Eventually you do. Where is the shift in that enjoyment or that love? Was it like you mentioned Almond Landscape, and we'll beep out that name so we don't have Almond in the show at all. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to him. No, was it Almond Landscape and learning more about this landscape construction field, or was it actually starting your own business and getting more enjoyment out of that?
It really wasn't the business side of stuff. It was really just the actual building,
Yeah,
just making cool projects.
gotcha.
Um, Almond is the one that kind of opened me up to the idea. But being honest, like RC Outdoor, like Richard Carroll, he was like the real big inspiration as far as just like doing funky stuff and just doing stuff like I've never seen before. Which like, wow, that is just so freaking cool,
Mhm.
And it was definitely more on just like the creative side of things.
Gotcha.
Um, the business side, that wasn't really an interest. Like, obviously, yeah, I want to make more money, but it wasn't like the idea of like, I want to build a cool business. It's like, I just want to build cool stuff.
Mhm. The creative aspect, and I definitely see that with your social media, and we'll talk about that as well. But you're also like designing a lot of cool things. Like I've seen you do those water features, and it doesn't come to mind to me right now, but you're doing some sort of fountains with concrete. Was it stone or some sort of veneer product? And I've also seen you post about those glass spheres that you're hoping to incorporate like a water feature in one of your projects. How important is that to you to like continuously push the design aspect in your designs, in your builds? Is that 100% you, and you want to kind of keep pushing that envelope? And what are some things that we can look forward to in the future with you?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like the designing aspect of it, like the creativity, that's the part I really love, and water features is one thing that I've really started leaning into. It's just there's just something about water features that are so cool. Just like the ambiance. It's kind of like lighting, to where it just changes a whole project. And there's that ambiance. It's not something that you absolutely need, but once you have it, it's just like, wow, how do you not have this? And they're all 100% different. Like, sure, like a pre-made fountain, they're all the same, but like when you're building pondless water features, when you're getting to just build different stuff, like that's the stuff that I really love.
Definitely.
Just that I like the creativity aspect of it.
Okay, so then continuing with that creativity aspect, it also bleeds over into your Instagram, where at least around the time I started following you, you were doing 30 posts in 30 days and getting really carried away with I mean, I don't follow a lot of accounts on Instagram, but you were capturing my attention with the really cool things that you were doing with your transitions and like having an iPad in front of the screen and it's following you around and showing the screen. Lots of cool different things. How important has that social media aspect been in growing your business?
Without social media, I probably wouldn't be landscaping right now, because that's where I discovered like my inspiration with Almond and Mulder, RC, all those guys. But 100% of my business is either referral based or comes from Instagram, and it's absolutely critical. Like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Instagram.
Right.
I grew up thinking social media was for losers or teenage girls, but now I'm like, my wife and I would joke, like, she would always used to be on Instagram, and I'm like, what are you doing? Just wasting your time. And now it's me. I'm the one doing it. And she asked me that. I'm like, well, this is how we pay the bills, so I can justify it, kind of.
Gotcha. So then where do you think at what point do you sink your teeth into Instagram, decide to do those 30 posts in 30 days? And where do you get the ideas in terms of, I mean, like every single one of those posts were super creative. And how do you start to sink your teeth into something like that? And decide to do that, especially those 30 posts in 30 days. And I think it was 30 posts in 30 days, but yeah.
Yeah, that's when I like the 30 posts in 30 days. That's when the account really started to shift from like just being, where I get business from, to actually kind of transferring over into like that. I don't like to say like that influencer status, where I was actually like worried about like how many followers I have, and I was actually trying to grow the account.
After that sort of transition phase, as you mentioned there, from like that landscaping towards the more so growing your follower count, did you notice a difference in leads? Like before then, were you getting leads, and what did they look like versus nowadays? Are you getting more leads? The quantity of leads have increased. Has the quality increased? Like during your time on Instagram, have you noticed a change, especially with the growth in followers, of quality and quantity of leads?
I would say that as far as like how the leads have came in over the past couple of years. When I first started, 100% of my leads, they were local people, and they weren't following me for too long, so they were just they were new people, right? They didn't really know what I was doing. Whereas nowadays, I've got people that have been following for the past couple of years, where they say, hey, I've been following you for a while, and like, you're my guy. Like they've already decided that I'm their guy. But now I'm also getting a lot more leads that are not qualified, where they are, I'm in Nebraska, or I'm in Florida, or, stuff like that. Because when I first started, my focus was 100% local, right? I wasn't trying to grow a following. I was just trying to get customers. But now I'm trying to grow the following. So now I'm getting, not all the leads are as the ones I want.
Gotcha. So then if you do stay small, would you ever be interested in traveling around and doing design builds, or is that something that wouldn't even be on your radar that you'd want to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that would be a lot of fun. Over the summer, I did a project with Heiner, the artist, over in Colorado. And then he's another person who I looked up to a lot. And I think a lot of people do. And he's one of those people where I've always known him. I've always had a bunch of respect for him, but I've always been a little bit intimidated. So I had a few, like, couple message interactions with him, but we'd never really, built up that rapport. And then he randomly messaged me just like, "Hey, I'm doing this project. Would you want to help out?" And I was just like, I kind of fangirled a little bit, like, "Oh my God." Like he reached out like, "Yeah, I'm in. Like, I don't care what the details are. I'm in." And then he's like, "All right, great." So I got my friend, he's going to come out and we're going to build this waterfall together. And then that friend was Alan Decker, Decker Pondscapes, I think it is. And I thought we were both going to go learn from Matt, but Decker was the pond master. Like, this guy was crazy. And talking with him, like, he travels all over the country and all over the world building water features everywhere. And that was like kind of opened my eyes, like, wow, like he travels all over, he builds these awesome features. Like, he's also got a small, one crew operation back at home, but he also gets like makes good money traveling. Like, that would be the direction I would like to go.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I did see those stories that you were posting there with Heiner, and it looks pretty incredible what you guys were doing there with the pond installation. So, do you do ponds now, or did you do them before, or are you looking to kind of grow that side of the business?
I haven't done too many like actual ponds,
Yeah.
like, like a body of water. I've done quite a few water features, pondless waterfalls, fountains, stuff like that. I'm not opposed to doing a pond. Um, I kind of like, my grandpa used to say growing up, like, "You got money, I can do it. I'll figure it out." So ponds is something that I would absolutely love to do, but it's not something that I have been actively pushing for, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. And okay, so Instagram. I'm gonna be a little bit selfish here, but I think this could also help our audience as well. Because this coming year, 2024, I want to focus more so on Instagram, kind of get that ball rolling. So I've got somebody here who's done some amazing creative short form content on Instagram. Dylan, where would you recommend somebody start if they want to go down that Instagram route of growing their following? And what effects have you seen? We kind of touched on that with leads in your business, but what kind of effects have you seen from growing your following? Was the effort that you put into worth it for your business? Was it worth it for personal? Just all around, but I guess we'll start with that starting point. Where would you point somebody to, or how would you kind of nudge them to start growing their following in terms of short form content and getting that ball rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. But to kind of answer your question, like, it's been beneficial for the business. It's been beneficial on the personal side. There's like, Instagram has literally changed my life. And, I believe, like, if someone leans into it and, takes the time to kind of learn the basic principles of, what makes engaging content, it can pay off dividends. There's a lot of different ways you can go about growing the account, whether you're being more educational based, more humor based. There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's not one right or wrong formula, but I do believe that there are some basic principles that apply to everybody, no matter what route you take. And so if you're going to start kind of going down that road of trying to build your brand and build up your account, the first step is you just got to start posting. You have to get in the routine of being consistent. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to post every single day, but you do want to post at least a couple times a week, and just get over the fact that you're going to suck at first. You're going to suck. But the good thing is like, when you're first starting out, you don't have that many followers. So it's okay to suck. But as you start being more consistent and you start to learn those skills, you're going to start to get better, and it gets easier. And it's kind of like going to the gym, where it's extremely hard to go that first time. It's really hard to go that first week, that first month. But after you start going and going and going, you don't even think about it anymore. It's just kind of like it's just something I do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can make it fit within whatever schedule you can. If you want to spend 10 hours a day on it, you can absolutely spend 10 hours a day on it. But you could also spend 15 minutes of just concentrated effort and be successful that way too. Obviously, you're going to have to be a lot more focused if you're only going to spend that little bit of time on it. But it's all about consistency. That's the biggest thing. And then the next biggest thing is, be a student. you know, follow people who are doing well, kind of like notice what they're doing. Don't mindlessly scroll. You know, if you see an account, or you see a video that you thought was like, wow, that was cool, think like, all right, well, how do I put my spin on that? How do I recreate that? You know, just follow some Instagram experts. You know, some of them are a little corny. You know, get past the corniness and just get to what their message is. You know, and just take it in from everywhere. And don't be afraid to try new things. You know, that's the big thing. You know, I was listening to this podcast with Gary Vaynerchuk the other day, and he was saying like the number one reason why people aren't like pushing social media as hard as they are is all because of fear, like what people are going to think of them. And I'm like, wow, that's really true. You know, it's just get beside yourself and just put yourself out there, you know.
Definitely.
And my biggest thing was like, I was deathly afraid of going on the camera. Like, even to this day, I don't like putting myself on camera. You know, I'm pretty self-conscious. So how I kind of got over that is like, I don't use a selfie camera on my phone. I
Oh,
always have the phone turned away from me. You
okay.
know, so I got the iPhone, I put on the wide angle so it makes it look like I'm further away from me. You know, I've done thousands and thousands of stories, and I've never once watched myself on screen when I talked on the phone,
Gotcha.
which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Speaking of iPhone, what gear are you usually using for stories, for reels, whatever you're kind of creating?
My rule is, you know, it's got to be as easy as possible from capturing content to posting.
Mhm.
So most of my content, all of my content, it's either shot on my phone, or if I have a drone shot, obviously that's done with the drones. And I'll occasionally set up the time lapse. I haven't been too big on lapses lately, but mostly it's just the iPhone. And
Gotcha.
then 100% of my editing is done on the iPhone too. Like, I know that I could produce some better content if I did do it on a computer, but that's just adding more steps. And like I said, it's all about consistency. And you know, you want to put out good content, but quantity is almost more important than quality.
Mm,
You know, I would rather put out 30 okay or good enough videos than 5 amazing award winning videos, you
gotcha.
know.
Interesting. Gotcha.
So
Um,
all iPhone.
Got it. And then have you noticed any trends or any, not so much trends, but things that you know are going to do well? Like, for example, with my at least YouTube channel, I know what video is going to do well and what videos are not going to do well, especially with whatever audience I've garnered at this point in time with that. Is it the same with Instagram? Have you found reels that, you know what, I know if I post this reel, it's going to do well, and then another reel which may not do well but serves a purpose for maybe your business or for the direction that you want to go with your Instagram? Do you find any of those trends with your content?
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are definitely things where I'm like, yeah, this reel isn't going to do well, like, but I'm going to post it anyway because I like it, you know? So, definitely, like, if you're trying to make a reel like go viral or you want it to do really well, try and keep it underneath 10 seconds. Like, we've got short attention spans, and you know, you might have the most epic, you know, minute and a half long reel that like follows a song perfectly, but just people don't have the attention span for it. And then also part of the algorithm too is like it watches like the percentage of the watch time. So if you have like a 1 minute video and they only watch 30 seconds of it, you know, the algorithm saying like, oh, they watched half the video. Whereas if it's like a 7 second reel and they watch all of it, they see like, oh wow, people are watching 100% of this video. So definitely, like, the shorter the reel, the better. And then also too, you have to have a hook. Like, you have to get their attention right away. Within the first 2 seconds, you have to like give them a reason to keep watching. You know, if there's like a song with like a really slow build up, but there's an epic drop, like, it might be cool for the person that's really into it, but it's not going to catch that average scroller because you got like, you know, there's the cadence of your scrolling. It's like scroll, 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 you know. So
Yeah.
shorter is definitely better.
What hooks of your own have you found very useful? Um, to yeah, have you found any hooks that you may go back to when you're creating a reel or anything like that?
like putting some text on screen first and like saying something like epic build, or kind of like explaining what the video is going to be about, really helps out. Also, there's this, the big trend of, people are a lot more likely to talk down on you versus build you up. So if you are to like post something that's like, we have a problem, that's the big one going around right now. There's a big problem on the job site, and like the reason why people are saying that is because, it works. Like people like to see problems, people like to, see you fail.
Yeah. Yes.
So, if you kind of like, I don't know how to exactly where I'm going with it, but just, yeah.
I agree. It's the same on any kind of video based platform. Is like one of my better videos is I lost $20,000 on this project because people like to see that I've lost money on a project that I did. Very similar kind of thing, especially with short form there. But would it have been worthwhile for you if you didn't have this creativity? Looking back at it and how long it took you from when you started Instagram to now, to at the very beginning have hired somebody to do it, and would that have paid off? Say you had to pay them 50 grand a year. Would that have been a worthwhile investment for, I think you said about 3 years in business, so about 150 grand? Would the leads have paid off that, the business, as well as anything else that your Instagram has done for you?
If I were to hire someone for 50 grand and they were able to produce the results that I have done, I would say 100% absolutely worth it. One, without a doubt. Do I think someone could have done it exactly the way I have? Absolutely not, because I have built kind of the brand around me, and I'm not just showing pretty pictures of projects. I'm showing my face. I'm talking, and there's no way I could, someone couldn't replicate that.
Right.
They could be successful doing it a different way, but not the exact same way that I have done it, if that makes sense.
So sort of going off of that, what if you hired somebody to literally just follow you? I know you're familiar with Gary Vee, just follow you around with a camera. Is that something that you would think about doing in the future? Would, if you weren't as creative as you are, done that from the very beginning to still keep that sort of personable, your face is on the screen? Or is there something about doing that selfie kind of shot and that intimacy that you build with your audience because of that selfie shot, as opposed to, what is it, the third person shot, I think, where somebody's filming you?
I think you could still experience results with having someone follow you. And, if I do become big enough, maybe I might, consider having a content person one day. Mm-hmm. But I do think it is a little bit more impactful when you are, actually filming it yourself. People can see, like, they can tell when you have like a selfie camera versus when somebody's watching you, right?
Yeah.
And there's like this extra level of authenticity that you get from it. What I would probably recommend, like if somebody's trying to like lean into it, like into Instagram, I would probably go about it I would have 2 different accounts. I would have one that is for the business, that is just 100% business related, shows pictures, all projects, and then also have a separate one that is more personal brand. And I would consider like the Landscaping with Dylan account, that's more like a personal brand. So that's the way I would consider doing it.
I love that idea. Have the sort of portfolio that you can send people to, and then your own personal thing on the side. I really love that idea.
Heiner does that, and I really like that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go this route. Instagram. Is there any other platform that you'll go to next? Will you double down on Instagram? Is there any other platform like short form TikTok that you would take your Instagram and repost to TikTok? Do you do that already? I hate TikTok, so I don't even go on TikTok. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of next platform or reposting your Instagram on another platform?
I'm right there with you. Like, I hate TikTok. It kind of fits with that, like, that stereotypical like vision I had of what social
Yeah.
media was, which is like people dancing and just stupid, pointless. However, I do think it's starting to mature a little bit, and more people are starting to get over there. And I did try and build up an account there, I don't know, about a year ago, and I gave up after like a month because I'm like, this is stupid. But I'm kind of like, seeing the signs, and I think that TikTok's it's probably going to be around for a while. So I'm starting to seriously consider going back over there and giving it another shot. So I'm definitely considering TikTok, but also I think it's time I get started on YouTube. I've been kind of like nervous about it because it's long form and I've already so like spread thin already.
Yeah.
But I think that if I invest the time over there, it will pay off eventually. But YouTube, I think, is like at least a 1 to 2 year investment before you start really seeing that ROI.
Right. And then would you just repost your reels from Instagram to TikTok as well as from Instagram to YouTube, whatever they're called, stories or whatever they are?
Shorts, I think.
Shorts, yes. Would you just repost or would you try to create something different? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that like from like the little bit of experience that I did have over on TikTok, it's kind of different content.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a little bit different. And if you repost the same exact thing on another platform, it doesn't really hit the same way. So if I really like, all right, I'm going to take this serious, I'm going to try and grow it, I'm more than likely not going to repurpose the content. I'll tailor it to whatever platform I'm going to. I'll still probably use like the same media, but it'll be edited differently to fit the platform, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. Okay, so stories versus reels on Instagram. What's your thought process on this is a reel that I'm going to post, or you know what, I'm just going to do stories for this? Do you have like a divide as to what is a story, what's a reel, or what maybe kind of bridges the two?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I guess now we're kind of shifting over to like kind of more the technical side of stuff. So if I could actually take us in a different direction first,
absolutely,
is like before you really start posting, you have to determine like what is your account? Is it like that professional brand where it's just 100% professional, or is it the brand of Mike, or is it the brand of Dylan? Is it your personal brand? And you want to determine that, because whatever route you go, you want to be consistent in that. If you are going the professional route, and that's all you post, you don't want to mess it up by one week just completely changing it up and like, oh, I'm on vacation over here, just because like it doesn't fit with the theme. So first you want to determine what's your account going to be. And then next, you want to optimize your bio. Like your bio is huge. Your bio needs to tell people like, why are you, like, who are you? What do you do? And like, why should they follow you? It's your, elevator pitch. You're trying to get people to follow you. You are not trying to sell them. I think that putting your phone number, putting your license number, all of that stuff, you're just wasting opportunity. I think it's stupid to do that stuff. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
you're not trying to sell them. Like if someone's scrolling through and then they just look at your account, that phone number has zero value. They're not going to like, oh yeah, all right. And plus, I mean, they're not stupid. Like there's a call button like right below it. They can find your number,
Definitely.
so get your bio right. And if you are trying to get local business, you have to have your location in your bio. If you do, it is one of my biggest pet peeves where I just see like amazing work, amazing content, but I have no idea where you work. Like, sure, I kind of like, I'm interested. So like, I'll kind of look at a few posts, like see if location's tagged, or I'll look at the website. But the average person, they don't care. People don't care about landscaping the way landscapers do.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I don't care about window washers, but if I stumble on your account and I see that you're in my city, I might just hit follow just because you're in my city, just because maybe eventually I'll need one. So
Right.
someone's scrolling like maybe I might need a landscaper. He's local. What the hell? I'll follow. So I think you're stupid if you don't have your location in your bio. That's
Definitely.
and then you have to have a good profile picture. It's either got to be your logo or it's got to be your face. And it can't be like a far off shot where there's like 5 people in the photo. It's got to be like clear. It's got to be your face or it's got to be your logo. And you just got to roll with it. You can't switch it up. If you're switching it up every month or so, people are going to like, they don't know who you are. Like I almost unfollowed someone that I'm like good friends with. I've been talking for a few years because I didn't realize like I don't know who this person is. And then right before I hit unfollow, I'm like, oh wait, no, he just switched his logo. But anyway,
Yeah.
So next,
I just want to pause there because I just want to go through what your example is. Landscaping _ Dylan. And then yours is I build cool yards for cool people, which you've already said is obviously a phrase of yours on this podcast. This landscaper like, and trust. And then with a pin and then Placer County, California. So, and then that pin I think is really helpful, right? Because if there was no emoji there of the pin and just seeing Placer County, that pin tells you, oh, it's a location. This is where they're located, like right away.
Yep, it kind of helps bring attention to it. And then also too, if you have too much stuff in your bio, I don't know if they switched it, but it used to be to where you'd have to hit like the more little button and then you could see the last line. You want to make sure that that location is visible without hitting that more button.
Yeah.
Because it is really like, it is so critical to have your location in your bio. It's really important.
Now I'm going to mine and seeing what. No, just yeah. So Dylan, before I cut you off there, just to go through what your bio is, what were you going to say to continue on here?
Oh, then I was just going to shift over to like what your original question was.
Okay,
on, like, what do I determine? Like, what's a story? What's a reel? What's a post? What goes where? So, reels are how you get new exposure to your account. The only reason why I have so many followers, it's 100% from reels. People say they love my stories. I'm a lot more personal there, but the account 100% was built off of reels. That's what Instagram pushes out to people. That's what they recommend to people. So reels are the type of content that's where you get new followers, right? And whenever I post a reel, I'm always making sure I tag location and hashtags. They're not as big as they used to be. Instagram is moving more towards like an SEO sort of model to where like the captions have more input now and the hashtags aren't as relevant, but they still are relevant. So on every single reel that I post, I always have hashtag Sacramento, hashtag all of my cities, like the 5 like areas where I really work in. I always make sure to include that just to increase the chances of local people seeing my content, especially when I was first grinding and really trying to get business, because I mean, it's nice to have a lot of followers, but if a follower is in Florida and I only work in Sacramento, that doesn't really help me out very much. So I want local followers. Like one local follower is worth 1,000 in another country, or someone that you can't have no possibility of helping out with. So reels is where you get, that's your advertising. That's where you get new followers. Now stories, that is where you build the relationship. That is where you turn followers into raving fans. That's where you go more personal and you can talk about literally anything you want. You really, you're just trying to build that relationship. I heard this phrase like, people want to do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust, and, reels, that's where they get to know you. And stories, that's where they start to like and trust you. And if you can be consistent and really try and story every day and put your face on camera every day, it is like a cheat code because people, they see your face every day, if it's for 15 seconds, a minute, however much you story, and then it just keeps you on top of mind. So when they're ready for landscaping, they'll think like, oh, Dylan, because you're seeing me every day. I'm always top of mind. And it doesn't have to be the most amazing stuff ever. It can be literally, stories can literally be anything. That's where you can be a little bit more off brand. You don't have to stay 100% like posting, landscaping content. That's where you kind of be like, oh yeah, this new store opened up down the street. That's where you can kind of go a little bit more off topic and it's acceptable.
Gotcha.
You don't want to get too far off topic. You still want to keep at least 80% of it on point, but stories is absolutely critical to build that trust.
Gotcha. And okay, so stories, reels. Is there anything else that we haven't really covered that you would definitely want our audience to know more about with Instagram?
Yeah. So I want to give you like my secret, like the what I did to start getting business. So like I said earlier, when I first started Instagram, I tried doing ads. I tried posting, just pretty pictures, and nothing was converting. Like absolutely, I got no business whatsoever from it. And then once I started learning kind of like the basic principles of like what makes good content, then I was like, how do I get the local followers? So going back to Gary Vaynerchuk, he turned me on to this idea where there's the explore page where that little magnifying glass on the bottom, you type in whatever city you work in. So like, for example, I'm in Sacramento. I would go to Sacramento and I would, type in Sacramento and I would go to the recents tab. So where it'll show all the posts that have been posted in chronological order. And I would like every single post that was posted within the last hour. And if I could leave some sort of comment, like some sort of genuine comment, I would comment. And I did that every day for, I don't know, I think like 3 months solid of at least an hour a day where, don't tell anyone, but like I would just be driving down the road and I would just be scrolling, I would just do scroll, tap, tap, scroll, tap, tap. I wouldn't be looking at my phone. I was just trying to get like everybody that was local. And then kind of like the psychology there is, the average person on Instagram, they have 100, 500 followers. When they post something, they're getting 5, 10 likes. If they post, like they're getting like 30 likes, like, oh my gosh. So if some random person likes their content, they're going to say like, oh, who is this? And they're going to look at your profile. If you can leave a comment, like something genuine, it can't just be like a smiley face or something, but literally anything, you can say anything. You're just trying to get people's attention, just to get them to say like, who is this person, and get them to look at your account. And I look at that like passing out flyers. I can put 60 flyers on a house. I can do 60 flyers in an hour. I can do like 300, I call it Insta grinding. I can do like 300 in an hour, and it was like after a week of doing that, that's when I started to actually get leads. And then 3 months later, that's when I left the business because I was getting so much business where I couldn't handle. Like that's where I was like, all right, I can do this if I go on my own.
That's awesome. That's huge, especially for a possible downturn in the economy going into 2024. And maybe you don't want to go door to door because you don't don't want that interaction, or you
Yeah,
don't
and it
want to,
sucks. Door sucks.
yeah, exactly. Like spend time. You either have to spend time or money, right? And then at
Hmm.
least you can do that in the comfort of your own home. And like you said, it's just like passing out flyers at that point.
Oh no, absolutely. And I call it Insta grinding.
That's great.
Um, yeah, and I know for a fact it works. I've shared it. Like I haven't really like shared that like publicly, but I've shared it with like a few people, and some people like, oh, it doesn't really work. I'm like, you really didn't do it, did you? Like, yeah, I did it. Like I did it like 3 days, But I've got some buddies that have like my buddy at M&H Landco. Um, I've coached him up a lot, and he actually passed me in followers recently. He's like, dude, Insta grinding, it 100% works. So if I were trying to build my account, if I was like trying to actively get business, either I would or I would find someone that I trust. I'd pay someone $20 an hour. All right, you're just commenting on posts all day today. That's all you're doing. Just local posts. You're just engaging. You're just trying to get attention, build those relationships. That is, if I had to start over, I would be Insta grinding nonstop until I didn't have to anymore.
Definitely. Definitely. That's a great little nugget there. Before we leave the topic of social media, Instagram, anything else that you want to cover there?
There's so much. Like
Yeah.
I could talk for hours and hours about it. Right.
Yeah.
But there's that point where just, you can't, people can only absorb so much. Like the biggest things, it's get your bio, get your bio right. Try and get over your fear of going on camera. Like it's possible to grow the account and build that trust without going on camera. But if you can, it's an absolute cheat code. We're humans.
Yeah.
We like to have, human interactions. So put your face on camera. And then if you don't have business, like you need work, just start Insta grinding. Like, go in the trenches, so to speak. Just start engaging with local people.
Yes.
It's easy.
Definitely.
Just takes time.
That was awesome, Dylan. And we are running out of time here, so I'm going to blaze through a bunch of questions. Feel free to take as much or as little time as you want with each of them, given your schedule as well. But when it comes to somebody contacting you, do you charge for the initial consultation? Yes or no, and why or why not for that?
It's something that I've started to do more often. If it's a referral from a repeat customer, I'm not charging for that. But if it's someone that I don't know who they are, they're not like a longtime follower, I don't have any sort of relationship with them, I have started to charge $100 consultation fee just to weed out those people that aren't really serious.
And then when it comes to providing a proposal to your client, are you doing line item or work area proposal? Like, do you have a specific way that you go about organizing your proposal for a client, or does it vary from client to client?
It kind of varies depending on the job, but for the most part, I do like section it off.
Yeah.
It's not all like all or nothing. Here's the price. I do break it out. Like patio is this. Lighting, that's its own separate item. Just because not everyone can afford everything all at once, and there's some things that you can break out, but I'm not breaking out like here's what the material cost is on that. This is the drainage and irrigation, like those two, they go together hand in hand,
Yeah.
So it's broken down to a degree.
Okay. And then when it comes to a payment plan or payment structure, I mean, for a project, do you have specific percentage down to get into the schedule, percentage down at this point in the project, percentage down at the very end of the very project? Do you have a specific way to go about that, or is it also flexible when it comes to the project?
It depends on the project, but in the great state of California, we can only take $1,000 down, up like 10% or up to $1,000. So normally I'll just take $1,000 just to get the ball rolling, and then I will break it up from there. Like once we start the project, I'll take like 40%, and then like another 40%. I try and have it go with like milestones within the project. So like once hardscaping is completed, there's a chunk there. Once a planting is completed, there's a chunk. And then I just try and leave like no more than 10% left at the very end, just so I'm not, in a tough spot.
Gotcha. And I ask this question always after that one because sometimes they're related. Payments being the topic. Is there a horror story that you've experienced in your time in business? And the reason why I ask this is because we got listeners that are just starting out in business or just getting the or deciding to just to prepare them for what can happen in business. So Dylan, do you have a horror story that you've experienced in your time in business?
I don't really have necessarily like a horror story. Obviously, there's always problems, but there's been nothing that was like, groundbreaking. But I guess one horror story that kind of relates to what we're talking about that doesn't necessarily apply to me, but applies to my family, is, you know, if you're going to be with the social media and if you're having people running the accounts that aren't you, I recommend you having some sort of plan in place for, whose account is this? Um, what are the rules around it? Because I used to be Figs Landscaping and I ran it through the family, and then we kind of had a falling out, and then I took the account. I built it, I did everything, but there was that dilemma where it's like it was Figs Landscaping, but then I took it with me. So I would probably have some sort of plan in place for that. I think that it's good to social media is amazing, but you just got to be aware and just have a plan for what's going to happen and just whose is it, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And equipment, tools, anything that you live by in your business, whether that's on site, off site, that helps you run your business, installation practices. This is a question that I just kind of throw out there to our guests, see which direction that they want to go with it. But installation tactics, strategies, tools, equipment, anything that you live by with in your business there.
Well, I love my Mini X. That's like the coolest thing ever. And I love my Mini X and I love my Power Wheelbarrow. That's a great tool. There's people that have these, the $20,000 candy comms. They're freaking awesome. I would love to have one. But the H Max, it's a muck truck. If you don't really want to spend the money on the top of the line candy comm, I do highly endorse the muck trucks. I think they're worth the money. I think they're like $4,000. They can carry over 1,000 pounds, 4-wheel drive, and they're a great investment.
Perfect. Awesome. And mentors, people that you looked up to for inspiration, helped you along the way. Anybody here that you'd want to give a shout out on the podcast? I already mentioned a couple names already, but anybody that you want to double down on or also include here?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the usual suspects, right? RC Outdoor, Mulder, Almond, all the guys that have been on your podcast. Everybody's awesome. But one guy that I do look up to a lot, and that's helped me out a lot, and he's got kind of a smaller account, but he's like a legit landscaper, is Ideal Landscaping in Southern California. And he is one of those guys to where he calls me out on more shit than anything ever, where he's like, oh, you messed up there, you did that. But I appreciate it because I kind of like set my ego aside. I'm just like, I just want to get better. And I prefer when people call me out. And he's always been someone that'll call me out. And he also pats me on the back sometimes, but more than often he calls me out on my stuff and he keeps me honest and he makes me better. So Ideal Landscaping.
Nice. Awesome. And then my final question to you, Dylan, here. One thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning, that can be personal, that can be business related, anywhere that you want to take this. But what's that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning?
The importance of knowing my numbers. I'm still learning, I have got hooked up on Synced Up. So I am still trying to learn it. I know the importance of it, but I wish that I would have leaned into it more at the beginning instead of 3 years in. Now, like, all right, now it's really starting to, I got to learn it. So know your numbers.
Perfect. Dylan, closing comments. Thank you so much, actually, first foremost, for taking the time during the day to do this. I do really appreciate your time. And any closing comments, remarks, and where can our audience go find you, learn more about you, and see your amazing content that you got going on there?
Yeah. I just want to say thank you. When I'm talking about people that like really inspired me, your account was one, this podcast actually played a pretty big role, because when I was in that like super hungry, like learning about the industry, your podcast, I was listening to every episode, eating it up. And I just want to say thank you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you.
It's an awesome podcast. And then anybody that wants to learn more about me, they can find me on Instagram. It's just Landscaping with Dylan. And I do have a TikTok too, but I haven't really pushed it yet. So Landscaping with Dylan, pretty much everywhere. I'm going to keep that name. That's kind of, I like it. I'm going to roll with it. So
when you start the YouTube, they can go there as well.
Exactly. I might have already made one before, but
okay,
I haven't signed in for a while. But Landscaping with Dylan.
Perfect. Dylan, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. I highly suggest you go check out Landscaping with Dylan on Instagram. That's landscaping_with_Dylan there, as well as anywhere else you can find him to see the creative things that he's got cooked up there. I want to say thank you to everyone that continues to leave a rating and review, Apple, Spotify. I see those numbers increasing, and I thank you so much. That really does help with this podcast and getting it out there, as well as sharing with others in the industry, whether they are a hardscaper, supplier, landscaper, somebody wanting to get into hardscaping that I do really appreciate those shares as well. Once again, last chance to get in on the How to Hardscape headquarters software. If you're listening before 2024 to get locked in pricing, as well as getting the course content library all rolled up into one with that software, that's members.howtohardscape.com. If you're looking to book a demo, or shoot me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. And we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sets you for money off their services there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.